More signs the Chinese economy is stabilizing, underpinning investor sentiment in Europe. Asian shares and the euro hit a 6-week high against the dollar after upbeat Chinese PMIs. And it's heating up in Egypt again. Protests by Islamists allied to President Mohamed Morsi force Egypt's highest court to close indefinitely on Sunday. More on that in a moment, but first let's get to Reuters' Tara Joseph in Hong Kong for the very latest from China. Tara, does this data show China's recovery on track now?
Well, as far as PMI goes, the headline figures are certainly pointing to a recovery, Axel. Official PMI rising to a 7-month high, and the HSBC's version of the PMI topping 50 for the first time in over a year. However, you need to look beneath the headlines, analysts are saying. There's some evidence that it's really all about government-led firms that are the ones recovering, i.e. they're benefiting from state investment. If you look at smaller companies, they're still in retrenchment mode. What this means is it may well bode for the economy short term, but in the long run, there may be little advancement towards a faster moving economy and recovery overall.
And what about the rest of Asia? Does this data show the rest of Asia recovering as well?
Not as well and not as fast as China overall. We've had PMIs all around the region. The export picture is not as pretty anywhere, really. South Korea, where you have powerhouses such as Samsung and Hyundai, PMI edged up in the latest survey, but it's well below 50 for the 6th straight month. Also, Taiwan's exports continuing to look weak. Maybe the other bright spot aside from China is India. Last week, we had very bleak reading of the economy, but the PMI is looking a little bit better in India. So maybe it's time to start looking at the BRICS, Axel.
All right, Tara, many thanks for that. Greece unveils details of a crucial bond buyback today. Details just beginning to trickle across the wires now. The big question, of course, will it tempt enough bondholders to cut Greek debt by a net 20 billion euros? The buyback is a critical part of a debt reduction plan agreed by international lenders. Terms of the deal will be announced before a meeting of Eurozone finance ministers later today. Here to tie together Greece, those PMIs from China and factory surveys later from the Eurozone. Sarah Hewen, senior economist, Standard Chartered. Morning to you, Sarah. How long can the China PMIs carry sentiment, given the murky context that surrounds it?
Well, I think an improvement in the headline number is going to be positive, and I think markets are looking for better data coming out of China. So to a certain extent, it doesn't matter too much about the makeup as long as the headline is moving in the right direction. But clearly, we need to see that China growth is on a sustainable recovery, and that's only going to come once export markets have picked up and perhaps there's a broader recovery in the economy.
What do you, as we look ahead to the Eurozone numbers later, how bleak is that going to be in your view?
The euro area numbers are going to be the final data, so I think that they will confirm what we already know about the region, that the economy is in a downturn, that downturn probably accelerated in the 4th quarter. We'll have the PMIs from the periphery this morning, and again, it's been a pretty bleak picture there, so we're not expecting any particularly strong pickup, but nevertheless, at least we should see signs that the situation is not deteriorating further.
As I said, details, or some details of this buyback in Greece coming through now. It's clearly critical. What are we going to be saying about this at the end of the day, at the end of the week?
I think as long as we see a successful buyback, then it'll close this mini chapter for Greece. It will allow the release of the next bailout tranche. It will keep the IMF involved, which is key, and it will sustain, at least inject some funding into an economy which is crying out for it. So hopefully by the end of this week we'll be looking at a more positive situation, at least temporarily, for the euro area.
Are you getting more or less worried about Spain?
I think I'm about the same. The debt servicing costs have come down. There's no particular market pressure on Spain to go for a bailout, but it would make sense, in my view, for the economy to really lock in current relatively low borrowing rates and make sure that 2013 funding is adequately covered.
Many thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
In corporate news, Delta Airlines is in talks to buy Singapore Airlines' 49% stake in Virgin Atlantic, say sources close to the matter. Delta, the second biggest airline in the US, wants the British carrier's landing rights at London's Heathrow. Delta looked at buying a stake in Virgin more than 2 years ago, but balked at the asking price. Other news, EADS confirming its French and German stakeholders are discussing potential changes to the shareholding structure and corporate governance of the European Aerospace and Defence Group. The move is meant to reserve and enhance the interests of all stakeholders. Just a reminder, later today we'll talk with Airbus Chief Executive Fabrice Brégier to get an update on the European plane makers' business. It's been a busy time, of course, for Airbus and EADS. Finally, today marks 20 years since the first text message was sent. In December 1992, a British engineer called Neil Papworth used his computer to send Merry Christmas to a mobile phone. Last year, 150 billion texts were sent alone in Britain, according to UK comms regulator Ofcom. That is it. We'll leave you with our pick of the day. As always, showing Ricky Ponting saying farewell to cricket. Ponting's celebrated Test career coming to an end with a whimper rather than a bang when he was dismissed for 8 runs in a match between his beloved Australia and South Africa. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.